In this video, we show you how we create jigs using our laser machine. They're a great tool to use when engraving or printing on the same object multiple times, such as for a large order or in a production line. We're creating an updated version of this specimen tag for an artist, and we thought it was a great way to show you how to make jigs for your own projects.
The trick to creating jigs that will work in a laser or even in a flatbed printer is the registration of the artwork with the jig. In other words, the jig has to be made exactly so that every time you use it, you get the same results. I guess that's pretty much the definition of a jig.
Duh.
You're probably wondering why you'd even need to make a jig for your laser or printer. Well, for example, you might sell personalized products like luggage tags, dog tags, pens, etc. that you sell every day. You can't engrave or print these products until you get an order. When you do, you'll then create your artwork and lay it out on a digital template that will match exactly to your jig. I'll go over the basics how we create jigs for our lasers for engraving. For demonstration purposes, we made some small sample jigs for 1/8" MDF wood tags that we're going to be making. The jigs we made had both a top and a bottom so that parts can be loaded in it and be picked up. A base or bottom isn't necessary, but if you're doing a lot of loading and unloading into your laser or printer, this can save a lot of time. You can load and unload multiple jigs while the equipment is processing your jobs, speeding up your turnaround time. In this example, we made 2 jigs that each held 3 tags. We made one that had the tags stacked vertically and one that had them all in a row horizontally. There was really no reason to have 2 different versions like this, except to show the differences in engraving speed later. 2 equal-sized pieces were cut for each jig. 1 piece each was left as is to be the base of the jigs. The other pieces would be the top of the jig that had openings cut in them for the parts. 3 tags were laid out for cutting on the horizontal piece of MDF. The tags were cut from the blank. Technically, we only needed to cut the outline of the tags in this step, but by cutting the actual product, we get some extra pieces out of it. You can see that some half circles were cut out adjacent to the tags to make unloading the jig easier later. 3 tags were then also laid out for cutting on the vertical piece of MDF. And then the tags were cut from the blank. Also, half circles were cut on both sides of the tags to make unloading the jig easier later. The jig pieces had their mask peeled off. But before I got too far and maybe forgot the orientation, I made a mark at the top left-hand corner of each piece. You'll want to mark your jigs so that you know the orientation they will go in the laser or printer. Even if you know which way the parts are facing, at some point I guarantee you'll zone out and put the jig in backwards. If you have a lot of different jigs you're working with daily, you'll be especially glad you did this. The tops of the jigs were glued to the bases. Binder clips were added to clamp the pieces together to dry. It's important at this stage that the top and bottom pieces are aligned as closely as possible, or the engraving or printing will not line up correctly later. What I do is feel the edges with my fingers to make sure everything is flush. If it's not, then I can apply a little pressure to get the pieces to slide a bit into alignment. This can be done with or without the binder clips in place. While the jigs were drying, blank tags were cut out on the laser. And then the tags had the mask peeled from both sides. When all the parts are uniform in size like this, it's very easy to get into a rhythm to peel them faster. Once you get that first piece of mask peeled off, you can use it to start the next one, and so on and so forth. When you're finished, you'll end up with a nice supply of extremely clean parts that are ready for engraving or printing. When the jigs were dry, all the binder clips were removed and then loaded with our blank tags. The design template for the front side of the tag using the horizontal jig was loaded and sent to the laser. What's important to note here is that the engraving design file was lined up exactly the same as the file that was used to cut out the jig. This way, the engraving is registered to the jig. As long as the jig is put in the laser or printer in the exact same position, you are sure to have your design located correctly. The design template for the back side of the tag using the horizontal jig was then loaded and sent to the laser. The tags were flipped prior to engraving. Each side took about 5 minutes to engrave on our Trotec Speedy 400 laser. We could have reduced this time by not engraving as deep as we did though. This time that we got will be compared to the engraving time using the vertical jigs next. The design template for the front side of the tag using the vertical jig was loaded and sent to the laser. Again, it's important to note that the jig is oriented correctly and inserted all the way into the top left corner of the laser so that it will register correctly with the design template. The design template for the back side of the tag using the vertical jig was then loaded and sent to the laser. The tags were again flipped prior to engraving the design on the back side. This time, each side took almost 10 minutes to engrave on our Trotex Speedy 400 laser using the exact same settings as before. It showed that at least with our laser, it was more efficient for it to engrave multiple tags laid out horizontally, even though this added a little extra travel distance for the laser head between the tags. It's something to consider if you design your own jigs.
Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments what you think, and if you've ever thought about doing a project like this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to get notified of future projects. We have more tutorials coming soon. Stay tuned.